What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're doing preparation for the upcoming Super Boss Kizuna Clash. Now, we already have made a video for the 10-star difficulty version. You have to clear those first before you can build up some Super Boss coins to actually take on the 15-star Super Boss Challenge. Remember to make sure that you are in your alliance, get that all sorted, so that you can be prepared for your alliance to take on the Super Boss together. So we'll be talking about the Super Boss, and the fact that there's only 2 bosses this time around is fascinating, considering we have 3 normal bosses. Typically, if that's the case, we'll also have 3 super bosses, but this time it's only 2, which is actually kind of nice, so you only have to worry about building 2 separate teams. Of course, work together with your alliance to build a team that is going to be suffice with both your characters in your account, but also, characters in your alliance members as well. So make sure to build teams, talk with your alliance, make sure you can work together to build a really good team. But in this video, I'm just showing you guys just some brief team examples. I guess I'll trial these teams out when the Super Boss does eventually release, but I expect the teams that I show in this video today are going to be changing drastically from when, the end of the Kizuna Clash. But anyways, without further ado, let's start discussing both of these boss fights in this video. So the first of these super bosses is the INT variation. This is a very annoying super boss in the way that it's kind of structured, and you can just see just by looking at the screen that there are a lot of gimmicks to talk about, but we're going to break it down so you guys understand exactly what's going on here. So first of all, characters that are free spirit and cerebral are the ones that get cooldown across the board, so you want to build a team around that. So it's basically a Psy free spirit cerebral team is what you want to focus on. Now in Battle 2, there is like the miniature boss. Now they state here that they negate chain addition and chain locks for 98 turns. This means that for basically the entire duration of your run, you're not allowed to activate any chain additions or chain locks, which does include chain boundaries. So that's very frustrating. That is going to nerf your damage significantly. I'm not 100% sure if this accounts for chain multiplicative buffs or tap timing chain buffs like Shanks's superclass, for example, but it just means that those types of chains, specifically, at least to our knowledge, chain additions and locks, are not going to be added to the crew for 98 turns, which, as I said, is going to negate your damage by quite a fair margin. They also have a tandem slot barrier where you have to hit him with a tandem slot to break it, 5 turns of damage threshold. So that's actually kind of a lot to deal with for Battle 2. However, after 1 turn has passed, so if you decide to just pass the turn, all of your beneficial effects are removed, you get a full board of super block slots, and 3 turns of special reverse. It's basically 5 turns, but by the time you reach the last stage, it's going to end up being 3 turns. And then the enemy runs away. And that's what I'm going to be abusing with this team, as we'll talk about it right now. So with this team, we would basically just pass the turn and not do anything. We tank the super block slots because Gear 5 Luffy's super class or EX super special does remove those super block slots for us. And then the special reverse is dealt with via the friend captain Shanks captain ability as well. So we pass the turn, we tank the negative effects, but because of our captains and their gimmicks, we can just remove those. And because we are inflicted with special reverse, the support of Peckham's attached to Luffy will activate when we reach that final stage, which we'll talk about very shortly. So the boss stage here, he has a full immunity, but you're allowed to inflict increased damage taken to the opponent, which is going to be really, really key, because remember, Gear 5 Luffy's EX Super does allow you to inflict the enemy with increased damage taken. The enemy will super type, so they become a super int character. They're going to have defense up for 6 turns, 9 turns of despair inflicted to the crew, and then the enemy boosts their own attack by 3x for 1 turn. So this does sound a bit bizarre, but it's because this specific boss is designed very strangely. Now, if you inflict the enemy with increased damage taken with a special, then they remove your beneficial effects and give you 5 turns of slot bind. That's not really going to be that bad for us, because the EX Super of Luffy inflicts the increased damage taken, which cannot be interrupted by the opponent, so we don't have to worry about that. And then here's another one. Anytime you activate a special that is a damage special that does damage to the opponent, but this only works on the first turn. According to the gimmicks here, it does mention that the interrupt special's damage focused one will only occur until the enemy performs their first action. So basically, you do a damage dealing special, and then it says that they will apply a damage threshold that negates any damage that does over 5 million for 1 turn. And then after 1 turn has passed, then they have a slot effect boost intimidation where they -1 turn off of it that you activate, and 5 turns of damage threshold. So that's a lot to digest, but the way that this event is structured, basically you do a damage dealing special against the opponent, They negate damage for a turn unless if you have a way to remove damage threshold, but basically anytime you activate a damage special, they're going to keep applying this until you tank the first hit from the opponent. That's what it sounds like it's going to be structured like. So the way that this team would work is on the final stage, as we said, we will get the Peckham support to activate. The only reason why Peckham's is here is because he applies damage reduction. It's like a 75% damage reduction, which allows us to tank quite a lot of damage. And then what we do is we would go ahead and activate the Sabo special on this team. So Sabo is a damage dealing special which would activate the enemy's interrupt. It gives color affinity, and if we hit a certain amount of perfects, we'll get color affinity again in the next stage, and a chain multiplicative buff, which is important. But the other thing that we can activate is we can use the Shanks special, which obviously, as we know, 2-turn orb boost and removes 2 turns of enemy's defense completely. So this is going to be nice because it means that when we activate the special of Shanks, it's not going to be like intimidated or anything. And because the effects last for multiple turns, it actually doesn't really matter. So ideally, we use Sabo special, Shanks special, hit 3 perfects, and then pass the turn. We tank the hit because of the damage reduction, and then once the enemy has passed, they perform the next action of applying 5 turns of damage threshold and an intimidate on slot boosts. So after that turn has passed, color affinity from Sabo will be activated, multiplicative from Sabo will be activated, and Shanks' orb boost and defense reduction will still be activated. From here, what we can do is activate the Nami special, which will remove the enemy's threshold that is applied after 1 turn. We can then use the super swap of Usopp Yasop to get resistance, and then their special for a conditional boost, Robin for their conditional boost and double stacking, and then we can use the Luffy special, which will buff the orb boost from Shanks and also provide an attack boost, as well as using the EX super of Luffy, which gives us a full board of matching slots. And then we can use the super class of Shanks, giving the top row recovery, and then the bottom 4 characters get a tandem slot, which means that it allows us to use Nami's super tandem ability. So that is the way that this team works. We'd attack with Robin, Nami, Usopp Yasop, which would trigger the super tandem, buffing both of those conditional boosts and an attack boost. We're going to hit with Sabo, hit with Shanks, finish with the rush of Luffy. This should do billions upon billions of damage. I don't know the exact numbers. This should do very well, as long as everything goes according to plan, of course. And then we can move on to the secondary fight, and as I said, there's only 2 super bosses in this Kizuna, which is the Dex variation. So you want to be building a strength-focused team around fighter and powerhouse characters, which is what we're doing here. We're going to be using that combination of the brand new Monkey D. Luffy and Magma Kaido Friend Captain. So on Battle 2, Mini Boss, they despair your captain, the top right unit, for 10 turns, and they also give 5 turns of resilience, and all colored slots and recovery slots are badly matching for 1 turn. So the ideal way to get around this, of course, is because Kaido's captain ability does end of turn damage anyway, so the resilience does not matter. However, there is despair for the top right. We can use the super class of Luffy to remove that. We do have Kobe and Katakuri Sweet commanders on this team, which are characters that proc Luffy's super class, so that's great. And then we can remove the despair, use Luffy's special as well, and that will kill the enemy. The defeated action once we kill the opponent is that your captain gets minus 10 turns of cooldown, which is pretty important because we just use his special, and they do 50,000 damage to the crew as well, so you actually take quite a lot of damage. However, if you end up stalling a turn instead of just trying to kill this mini boss, you get remove beneficial effects, 5 turns of special bind, 5 turns of chain reduction, 100,000 damage instead, and then they retreat. So in this particular circumstance, I do feel like beating this unit is better. However, it just depends on your team comps and what characters you have, because if you have the new Monkey D. Luffy, this does make Stage 2 much easier. If you do not have Monkey D. Luffy, then not having that super class to remove the despair and stuff like that can be a bit annoying. So I guess it is dependent on the characters that you have in your character box. But once we move on to the final stage, there is a full immunity, but you are allowed to inflict increased damage taken, which is important. The enemy super types, so it's going to be super type Dex. There's 6 turns of threshold, 6 turns of paralysis, and any attack boost that you launch gets minus 1 turn intimidate, which is very frustrating, and any Wano recovery or tandem slot is a 1.5 multiplier instead. So there's not much we can do about that, unless if you're able to apply matching slots instead. But because of all of the buffs that we'll be getting, even though the slot multiplier is less, I don't really think there's much you can do about that, but look, it is what it is. I still think we'll be able to do like billions upon billions of damage, despite the fact that Wano recovery and tandem are not going to be much higher multiplier slots than what they would normally be. There is an interrupt. If you activate any effect that changes the multiplier of a slot or makes certain slots favorable for your crew, then your crew is healed by 99%. However, you do get a captain swap, which is frustrating. Luckily with this team, we don't have to worry about that at all. So the way that this team actually works is, obviously we use the Luffy stuff on Battle 2 and he kind of deals with it by himself. Now, when we reach the next stage, the characters on this team that we have Kobe. He removes 5 turns of paralysis and threshold by himself, which is really good. He also gives a chain lock, but he says that if you already have a chain lock, he actually buffs it, which is actually kind of nice. But the thing here is that you'd want to use Luffy as your dedicated attack booster, because the attack boost from the lead performers is only for 1 turn, which is going to be removed via the Intimidate. Luckily, Luffy's attack boost is for 2 turns. You get minus 10 turns from the defeat action. I'm not 100% if his special will be ready when you reach the final stage. If not, we just activate 1 special and it's going to be ready anyway, so that's not going to be that big of an issue. But ideally, you would go ahead and use you could use the Sweet Commanders because they also give an attack boost, but the Intimidate would remove it. But Sweet Commanders are also here because they also give color affinity, and they also give a chain boost, which is pretty nice for the crew. Now, we do have Kaido and his orb boost and 3 times increased damage taken conditional boost, which is absolutely incredible. And then we also have the lead performers, of course, which can buff the effects of what Kaido does. Big Mom for double stacking conditional boosts. Luffy, of course, for his attack boost. Kobe, as we said, does remove paralysis and threshold by 5, and also gives a chain lock. But ideally, what we'd want to do is if we can somehow activate Luffy twice. If we activate Luffy twice, it actually gives us the ability to get a chain boundary, and then if we use Kobe's special, it actually buffs chain boundaries, so that would actually be better if we're able to do that. I haven't done the math to whether that's actually possible, but if it is, that's awesome. Now, as for the supports, we have Vivi, which removes 2 turns of threshold when we reach the final stage, so that we don't have to worry about the threshold at all, and it also gives resistance down for Strength X Quick, so it makes our team do more damage. And then we also have the Otama attached to Big Mom, which says that when we use the special of Big Mom, it buffs conditional boost multipliers by 0.15, and it removes 1 turn of paralysis, so she's perfect for this stage. And with this team as well, we're going to have a super tandem with lead performers, we'll have Rush Sugo special with Kaido, and then we're going to have the massive final tap of Luffy on the last tap too, which, because our entire team pretty much is strength, we're going to get absolutely absurd damage output with Luffy's final tap. And obviously, the higher multiplier your final tap is at, the better this team is going to perform. So out of the 2, I definitely think the Dex one is much easier, because the int fight just requires a little bit more thinking, and you have to build around the fact that you have to basically stall 1 turn and then you can kill the boss. But we'll see how things go and as things progress. As I said, these are just very bare bones builds that we have at the moment, but as things progress, teams will change, and I'll likely report back to you guys for different teams once the event is actually live. So with all that being said, that will wrap it up for me for the Super Boss Kizuna preparation. As we said, we're going to be bringing more content in regards to these events once they actually become live in-game. Really hope you guys enjoyed the video though, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.